That bottle of apple cider vinegar on your counter. The one you paid $9 for at the health food store. With the little label promising gut healing. Throw it out. Not because vinegar is wrong. Because the drink your doctor never told you about, the one written into Proverbs chapter 25 verse 16, costs less than $2 to make and works in 72 hours. I know how that sounds. I was the skeptic too. I spent 31 years as a hospital logistics manager in Ohio, stocking the same antacids and proton pump inhibitors onto carts every morning, watching the same patients come back 6 months later with worse symptoms than before. My younger brother Caleb was one of them. 46 years old. Barium swallows. Endoscopies. 4 different prescriptions stacked in his bathroom drawer. Nothing worked. What worked was a cracked clay cup handed to him by an 80-year-old beekeeper named Yusef in a dusty village called Kafr Khana, just north of Nazareth, less than 3 miles from where Jesus turned water into wine. Yusef handed Caleb a mixture of raw mountain honey and fermented grape vinegar. 3 days later, my brother ate his first full meal in 2 years without pain. I flew there myself 6 months after that, and what I learned in Yusef's stone courtyard, under a grape arbor older than the state of Israel, is what I want to share with you tonight. Because the finale of this video contains a specific detail from a 2nd century Mishnaic tractate that modern gastroenterologists have never been trained to read, and it applies to your kitchen. Tonight. Here's the paradox that hooked me. The ancient Hebrews drank vinegar constantly. Ruth, chapter 2, verse 14, shows Boaz inviting Ruth to dip her bread in vinegar in the middle of the harvest. This was not a garnish. This was the standard midday drink of field workers, mixed with water and sometimes sweetened with wild honey. They called it chametz, and it was considered so essential that the Mishnah classified it as one of the 7 primary foods that could not be taxed into scarcity. But somewhere between the Second Temple and the invention of Tums in 1928, Americans were taught the exact opposite. That acid is the enemy, that you must suppress stomach acid at all costs. That burning equals damage. The truth buried in Scripture is inverted. When the stomach produces too little acid, undigested food ferments in the gut lining, bacteria overgrow, and the esophagus burns from the backwash of that fermentation, not from excess acid. Researchers at Hebrew University of Jerusalem have documented this mechanism in studies of traditional Middle Eastern diets, showing that populations who consume fermented acidic drinks daily have measurably lower rates of gastric reflux than populations who consume antacid medications. The ratio they found in one rural survey was roughly 4-to-1. 4 cases of reflux in the American sample for every 1 case in the Galilean sample. 4-to-1. And the Galilean sample was drinking what Ruth drank. Therefore, the first question becomes, what exactly is in this drink that modern medicine cannot replicate in a pill? The honey is not the honey you buy. The clover honey in the plastic bear on your shelf has been heat pasteurized to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, which destroys the living enzymes, the glucose oxidase, and nearly every strain of beneficial bacteria. What Yusef pulled from his hives was raw, unfiltered, and still carrying traces of propolis, the antimicrobial resin bees use to seal their hives against disease. Propolis has been studied extensively by ethnobotanists documenting Holy Land apiculture, and it contains over 300 bioactive compounds. 300. Your prescription omeprazole contains 1 active ingredient. Scripture knew this. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 13 says, "Eat honey, my son, for it is good, and the honeycomb, which is sweet to thy taste." Notice the word honeycomb, not honey alone. The comb itself carries the propolis, the royal jelly residue, the wax esters that coat your stomach lining like a shield. But honey alone is half the medicine. The vinegar is the other half, and this is where the suppression runs deepest. The vinegar of the Bible was not distilled white vinegar. It was slow fermented grape must, aged in clay amphorae for months, carrying live acetobacter cultures and a mother culture rich in acetic acid, gallic acid, and resveratrol from the grape skins. Archaeological excavations at Tel Kabri in northern Israel have recovered intact wine and vinegar storage jars dating to the Middle Bronze Age, and residue analysis confirms the presence of fermentation compounds identical to what traditional producers in the Galilee still make today. The pharmaceutical industry cannot patent a mother culture. It cannot patent raw honey. It cannot patent a 2-ingredient drink that costs pennies per serving. So for decades, the advice funneled through medical journals, hospital cafeterias, and the magazines in your doctor's waiting room was that acidic drinks would destroy your stomach. The opposite of what scripture, archaeology, and 3,000 years of Middle Eastern daily life had proven. Therefore, the question you're probably asking right now is the one I asked Yusef on my 3rd morning in his courtyard. Can I make this at home in Ohio, without flying to Israel, without a specialty shop, with things from a regular grocery store? He laughed. He said the medicine was never meant to be rare. Here's what you do this week. Buy 1 jar of raw, unfiltered honey. The label must say raw and unfiltered, not pure, not natural, not organic alone. Those words mean nothing. Raw and unfiltered are the 2 words that matter. Most regular grocery stores carry at least 1 brand for under $8. Buy 1 bottle of raw apple cider vinegar with the mother, the cloudy sediment floating at the bottom. Bragg's Works. Store brand organic with the mother works. Avoid anything clear and filtered. Into a glass of warm water, not hot, warm enough that you can hold your finger in it comfortably. Stir 1 tablespoon of the vinegar and 1 teaspoon of the honey. Drink it slowly, first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, 30 minutes before you eat anything else. Do this for 3 consecutive mornings. That is the protocol Yusef taught Caleb. That is the protocol preserved in Kafir Khana. That is what Ruth would recognize. By the 3rd morning, most people feel a shift, not a miracle. A shift. The bloating eases. The fire in the chest quiets. The bathroom visits normalize. Your gut lining begins the repair process that proton pump inhibitors actively block by stripping away the acid environment. Your lower esophageal sphincter needs to stay closed. But here is the secret I promised you at the beginning. The finale buried in a 2nd century document that almost no pastor in America has ever opened. The Mishneh Tractate Shabbat, in chapter 14, discusses which remedies can be taken on the Sabbath without violating rest laws. Deep in that discussion, the rabbis describe a specific preparation for stomach ailments, a combination of vinegar and honey dissolved in water. And they add 1 critical instruction, the modern world lost completely. They instruct the drinker to chew a single green leaf of mint, or hyssop, immediately after drinking the mixture. Hyssop. The same plant used in Psalm 51, verse 7. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. The same plant dipped in vinegar and lifted to Christ on the cross in John chapter 19, verse 29. That leaf is not symbolic. Hyssop contains a volatile oil called pinocamphone, which researchers have identified as a potent stimulant of bile flow and a natural antispasmodic for the digestive tract. When you drink the honey vinegar water and then chew a fresh mint or hyssop leaf, the combination completes a 3-part healing action. The honey coats, the vinegar restores acid balance, and feeds the mother culture into your gut. The herb opens the bile duct and relaxes the smooth muscle of the stomach wall. 3 ingredients, 3 mornings, $3 at any grocery store that sells a pot of fresh mint in the produce section. This is what Pharma hates. Not because they are cartoon villains, because there is no quarterly revenue in a remedy Ruth drank in a barley field. You were not born to be dependent on a pill bottle you refill every 30 days for the rest of your life. You were born to steward the body God gave you with the wisdom He wrote into His Word, and preserved in stubborn little villages that refuse to forget. Try it this week. 3 mornings. Honey, vinegar with the mother, warm water, and a single leaf of fresh mint from your windowsill. Then come back to this video and tell me in the comments exactly how morning 3 felt compared to morning 1. I read every comment. I want the specifics. Bloating, sleep, energy, appetite. Write it down. If this is the kind of buried wisdom you want more of, subscribe and stay with this family of believers who are quietly recovering what was taken. The next video pulls apart a single verse in Ezekiel chapter 4 that describes a bread recipe. Modern nutritionists are only now admitting outperforms every protein powder on the market. You will not want to miss what the 4th ingredient is.